So you keep coming across these atrocities. Is it ever possible to get used to seeing it? Do you develop a certain level of desensitization because you've been exposed to, covering these types of scenes for, a long time now? Or is it more than shocking every single time? Or maybe perhaps the first time was the most shocking?
No, it continues to be shocking. When I nodded my head at desensitization, it's what I meant was that at the time you develop an ability to do what's necessary in terms of filming and getting information, but it always hits you. At least it always hits me. Definitely. If I talk about it too much, I'll probably get emotional. But no, it definitely does affect you. So I remember the first time. Wasn't the first time I saw a dead body in Gaza. So, before the war started on December 27th, 2008, of course, Israel was bombing prior to that. So I had taken testimonies. Maybe I hadn't seen a dead body at that point. So anyway, after the war started and we started volunteering with the paramedics, and so I was I don't remember, somewhere in northern Gaza. And so the paramedics were picking up the remains of a body, and the person's face had imploded, and I started sobbing. And this medic, a really lovely man, Arfa Abdul Dayem, he was so lovely, but he basically said to me, I guess he must have spoken English because my Arabic wasn't that strong at this point. He said to me, "If you're going to work with us, you can't cry." And he wasn't being a dick. He was just saying, like, you have to get yourself together. And so I learned to compartmentalize that. But I still felt, the horror of it. And I mean, because it's not only, it's everything. All your senses are interpreting it. You're smelling it, you're hearing it. And I did learn to compartmentalize and then later let the emotions out. But I remember in 2012 in central Gaza at the I think it was the Quds Hospital. I can't remember. And again, I'd seen so many dead bodies by that point. But this boy was brought in, a teenage 14-year-old, I think his name was Nidal, and his whole body was like spaghetti, and his face was studded with shrapnel. And I just started sobbing. I shouldn't have, but I did. So it does get to you, obviously. But yeah, I guess that's to your question. Yeah, like even in Donetsk, like, years after Gaza and Syria, because I saw a lot of maimed and dead bodies in Syria as well. But even in Donetsk, I remember, I can't remember which particular, well, no, every time. Like the times in September were especially hard because it was just, like I said earlier, just horrific scenes and smells. But there, even it doesn't even have to be something that ghastly. It's knowing. So that in August, when Ukrainian forces, they were shelling the funeral of a commander from Gorlovka on August 4th, Olga Kachura or something like that.
Yes, I
And
remember.
the shelling started in front of the Donetsk Opera Theater, I think it is, which is basically 200 meters roughly from Dundas Palace, where a lot of the journalists were staying. And I usually was renting a discreet apartment, but at that point I was actually staying there to be near the journalists because this is a very busy time in terms of the Ukrainian shelling, so it was better to be near them so I could go out with them. And so that shelling, which started there, led up to the hotel. The last shell landed right outside the hotel and killed a woman that was walking by. And anyway, that day, I think it was 6 people were killed. And there were some, obviously horrific scenes from the pedestrian walkway. I'm totally blanking in the name, just a couple blocks over. And later you learned that there was a little ballerina. She was, an aspiring ballerina. She was due to go to St. Petersburg to study. She was killed in the shelling. Her grandmother was killed, and her ballet teacher, who was a former star ballerina herself, was killed. And so you see these anguish scenes of, I think, the husband of the grandmother, or the husband of the, yeah, I think it was the husband of the grandmother, shrieking at the sight of his granddaughter who's torn to pieces. So even if you're not directly seeing it, like I saw the woman outside the hotel, but when you learn of these stories, it's still obviously like very traumatic because it's so emotional. Yeah. So It does still affect. I don't think there's that many people that wouldn't be affected by it. If they aren't, then I guess I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it.
Well, some kind of abnormal psychology probably would be at play because I mean, especially now with the proliferation of everyone using their smartphones and dumping content on social media. I mean, some of the stuff we see is, horrors beyond comprehension. You can't even, like, your imagination is not capable of imagining the things that are real and that are shown to us on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
so, and of course, ultimately, it's important to understand, even though it's awful to look at.